110. Watch live on Facebook, Ptv2 Zambia. Prime TV2 Zambia, your window to the nation, your gateway to the world.
Early in the morning, fire on the stove, love in a pie, that's the life we know. From the fields to the table, every bite it shows. Primarily me, the taste of home. Primarily me, the taste of home. Primarily me, the taste of home. Mama in the kitchen, we never eat alone. Primarily me, the taste of home.
Prime Mill Meal, pure, proudly Zambian, the taste of home.
Good morning, welcome to the Sunrise Breakfast Show, where the day begins with truth, tough questions, and conversations that shape the nation. This is not just any other show. Today we ask the deep and questions that are accountable and that pertain national interest. My name is Kapili Dominic, and for the next 2 hours, we break down the stories behind the headlines, from politics, governance, justice, livelihoods, infrastructure, and sports. Joining me, as always, is my colleague, co-pilot, is Jesse Kalambo. Jesse, good morning.
Good morning, Dominic. I hope you're having a wonderful morning, and good morning to you, our viewers.
Yes, Jesse, how has been the week?
Well, the week has been quite interesting, especially when it comes to current affairs and specifically by-elections, and I'm literally looking forward to Chawama by-elections because I'm thinking it's getting heated, just from experiencing or seeing somebody actually washing clothes for the residents of Chawama. Now, we actually continue to see what I would call political theater, more political theater from the UPND, and just making sure that they get more numbers from Chawama. Mark Sumoe was actually cooking for the residents of Chawama.
And we actually talked about it at Varambo Spiki Ramanje.
You see, and it's coming to pass.
And started to cook. I think this campaign is quite very interesting.
It is.
Looking forward, I want to believe that we are going to be seeing more interesting and funny and ironic actions by different political players. And I hope at the end of the day, these people are actually giving flavor and they are giving the people, telling the people things that they will actually do and not just do things that make people laugh, because the things that are trending are just these ironics and, you know, which is not so good. But looks like the people have actually embraced it and it's flooded social media pages.
You know, Zambians are quite interesting individuals. You know, they would entertain you, and then when it comes to voting, something else might come up. I think we saw this in the time we were holding national elections. You know, people were dancing to Don't Kubeba. People were, you know, they were literally taking part in whatever patriotic front was throwing onto us. But what happens? So, and that brings me to another quote I read on Max Omowe's page, where he was saying, thank you so much for placing your vote on our candidate. You know, the confidence in just releasing that statement, or rather just formulating that Facebook caption. For me, I was like, oh my goodness, what happens if you don't school? So it's going to be, for me, literally, I'm looking forward to the 15th, just to get to find out what will unveil.
Yeah, of course, dear viewers, we're coming to you live on Topstar Channel 110 and streaming live on our Facebook page. That is Ptv2 Zambia. We are also streaming on our YouTube page, which is also Ptv2 Zambia. You can send us your text message to the number 0972 036 306. That's 0972 036 306. You can also let us know what is going on. You can tap in the comment section and tell us what you are thinking. Give us your comment and let us get interactive, because today's breakfast show is going to be quite an interesting edition of the breakfast show. Jesse, apart from the Tonse, apart from what's going on in Chawama, what is on your mind this week?
Okay, literally what I was going to say Tonse, but no, I'm literally trying to avoid it because you mentioned it. So I'll deliberately just let it slide. But it was, you know, because it's something we were talking about even last time.
Yeah.
Look at me even diving into it right now.
And no, let's continue the conversation. Let's continue.
Right.
Let's
you
talk
remember
about it.
we spoke about the Patriotic Front being in some sort of confusion, if you remember in one of our shows. But this time around, it has taken turn to a huge sport. And we're talking about the Tonse Alliance. An alliance that was so confident that it has come to take over and that they believe in whatever they've actually formulated as an alliance.
Yeah.
But look at them now. And then we actually saw Savoy being so strong, coming out so strong on one of our Facebook page. And she actually said she was anticipating for this kind of scenario, because according to her, for the Tonse Alliance to actually blossom, it needed to kick out PF.
You know the Tonse Alliance, it was looking like it was on the backbone of the Patriotic Front. It all just looked like it was a different Patriotic Front being rebranded, you know. But the thing is that the Patriotic Front did not do their homework, you know. We have the leaders in the Patriotic Front who know and who understood how divided the party was, you know. Then they go into an alliance with other parties. Now, that is chaos already. Yourselves are not together. So many pamozi, mfuno kujoina na manja na wanduenangu. So I think that is why they missed it, because the Patriotic Front itself, even now, it's messed up. There's no future. And I think it's something that we should not even talk about anymore, because there's nothing productive about it. We're just watching people fighting, people arguing, people coming out, people doing what and this and that. So I feel it's no longer interesting. It's no longer an interesting topic to talk about. Tonse Alliance is also losing its value. I think, you know, these people should sit down and put their house together, because they want to lead a nation. They want to lead people with different tribes, people with different denominations, people with different attitudes, you know. And they cannot maintain a simple party of their own, which is now extended to a simple alliance. The UPND has been united like its name for quite some time now.
Right.
I don't know after the election how it's going to be, after they're out of office, when they're out of office. I don't know how it's going to be. But for now, I want to believe and say that they have been doing a good job to hold themselves together. We've seen parties that have started and are all in tatters. So I hope for the best for what's going to happen forward, and we're going to not have political parties having problems and breaking out and having alliances breaking out the way we are seeing them happening, because we need a strong alliance.
Yeah, and personally, I feel it's taking me back to the common notion that people say when you're hanging out with a certain type of an individual who has some sort of maybe negative attitude, be rest assured that it can be contagious, passed on to you. So I'm thinking it's a similar thing. You know those people who say, uyu mzako aliso, so now ukambosoera nayo zankala.
The way they say I'm good company,
you understand, right? So it's like Patriotic Front took their contagious confusion in the Tonse alliance. And then the other thing about unity, comparing UPND and then Patriotic Front. For me, I'm thinking, even the time that Patriotic Front was in government, they looked like they're so in sync, like they're united, until things fell apart. So, but we're not wishing that on UPND. We're not wishing that.
There won't be a vacuum without me in the PS. I think that one we should always put to mind and always remember, because Anakamba. Yeah. So we will be joined shortly as we discuss and break down what's going on in Chawama. We'll be joined by Transparency International Zambia Governance and Institutional Strengthening Manager, as he leads us into the critical by-election in Chawama. Then soon after that, we're going to discuss what is trending or what is happening, or we'll take just a look at the newspapers and see the headlines and have a brief discussion. For now, we'll see you on the other side. Let's take a break.
Early in the morning, fire on the stove, love in a pie, that's the life we know. From the fields to the table, every bite it shows. Primarily me, the taste of home. Primarily me, the taste of home. Primarily me, the taste of home. Mama in the kitchen, we never eat alone. Primarily meal, the taste of home.
Primarily meal, pure, proudly Zambian, the taste of home.
When news breaks, we are already there. Welcome to Ptv2 Zambia, the channel that never sleeps. From community stories in your backyard to national headlines shaping the country and sports and international updates that keep you ahead, we bring it all to your screen. 24/7 news, fast, reliable, unmatched. Catch us on Topstar, channel 110. Watch live on Facebook, Ptv2 Zambia. Prime TV2 Zambia, your window to the nation, your gateway to the world.
welcome back. It's exactly 7 days before the people of Chawama constituency in Lusaka head to the polls to elect their member of parliament. 9 candidates drawn from various political parties and independent platforms are contesting the seat, with campaigns reaching fever pitch across the constituency. As political temperature rises, so too do questions around credibility, fairness, and integrity of the electoral process. Ultimately, who will carry the day will be determined on the 15th of January 2026. However, the campaigns have not been without controversy. There have been allegations of vote buying, with reports of some political players are allegedly distributing food items such as mealie meal to voters. One of the parties accused is the ruling United Party for National Development, UPND. Allegations the party has firmly dismissed, maintaining the distribution of food is meant to support party members, not to influence voters. But where does the line between social support and voter buying lie? And what does this mean for Zambia's democracy? Let's look at a report by Rajesh Michael Simusa.
This year has begun on the
Chawama by-election campaigns has been marked by debate and scrutiny, with claims circulating on social media suggesting that the ruling UPND is distributing food to entice voters. However, party officials have strongly rejected the allegations, insisting that the party's campaign methods remain lawful and ethical.
Coming to do with the mealie meal, can you feed the people of Chawama? That's number one. Because when you are talking, you need to understand, can you feed all the people of Chawama, even if you're in government? The answer is no. There are 92,000 voters plus.
Maybe
you can't. You can't. No political party can do that. Either opposition or the ruling party. We as a party UPND, we have foot soldiers. We have a structure at a section level who goes to do the job of door to door.
Right.
Who needs, when they have done their job, they need to come and eat.
Okay.
So those who continue to feed them. But to go and let people come here and then we give a burger, it can't. No one can do that. So even the opposition themselves, they have got mealie meal. 2 days ago, I went to another political party passing through. When they could, I joined them, I went there. By the way of bringing peace.
Right.
So who has given that mealie? Are they buying people? The answer is no. They're not buying. No one is buying anyone. The issue is...
The UPND leaders further stressed that their campaign strategy is centered on direct engagement with residents rather than material inducements.
But now the issue of mealie meal, which is attached to our campaign, is not for buying votes. It's for feeding our foot soldiers. I think I've said this time and again. We as UPND, we understand the electoral code of conduct very much. We understand it. We know it. This is not the first time we've been in election. We've been in election for a very long time, so we know the don'ts and the the do's and the don'ts. So we know that here we can do this, here we can't do that. But also we need to lead by a good example as a government now. Okay, what we condemned when we were in opposition, it should not be correct and it should not be right now. It should be wrong the way it used to be wrong.
Rajesh Michael Simiza reporting, Prime TV News in Lusaka.
Thank you so much, Rajesh, for that report. For those joining us, we are live on Ptv2 Zambia and also streaming live on our YouTube page, Ptv2 Zambia. To help us unpack these issues, we are joined by Transparency International Governance and Institutional Strengthening Manager, Mr. Chimuka Nachivinga, to give us TIZ's position on electoral corruption and what it means for Zambia's democratic future. Managers, it's an honor to have you on the show. How are you today?
I'm all right, and how are you? And,
I'm good,
good
thanks.
morning to the viewers.
Thank you so much. We are also honored to have you on the breakfast show.
Thank you so much.
To set the foundation of this discussion, how does Transparency International Zambia define electoral corruption, and what what points does and at what point do campaigns cross the line of legitimacy and illegality?
Thank you so much. Let me start by defining what corruption is, so that we can have a better understanding as we try to break what electoral corruption is. So there are many authorities that have defined what corruption is, and I'll start by defining corruption using the definition which is in the Anti-Corruption Act number 3 of 2012. So when you look at the definition there, I think two things come out. One is the issue of gratification. So you find that corruption is seen as a process of a person soliciting, accepting, obtaining, promising, or giving any gratification, okay, for the purposes of ensuring that they can gain some personal interest from whatever is happening. The second aspect, of course, that comes out of that particular definition is the abuse of public office. So you discover that an individual that has been entrusted with a public office, they use that particular office so that they can gain something out of whatever deal they are doing. And basically, that is both in a public and private institution. Now, when you look at the definition of corruption that has been put by Transparency International, we define corruption as abuse of entrusted power. Basically, what this implies is that you have been given this power, but you are abusing it in terms of how you are applying the power that you have been entrusted with. So this goes basically both to financial and non-financial related matters, and this abuse also cuts across from the public sector to the private sector. So when you look at these two definitions that I've given, you will discover that a corruption, of course, is multi-faced, and it depends on where you are standing for you to be able to understand it clearly. But at the end of it, it involves an aspect of gratification that would definitely induce someone to be able to provide a favor, and that particular favor has to involve an aspect of private gain for that particular individual or the individuals that are involved in the matter. Now, coming to electoral corruption, let me start by saying that a free and fair election is always a cornerstone to a democratic system or a democratic governance system. You will, however, discover that countries that have got weaker governance institutions will always have challenges when it comes to the integrity of the electoral processes. And there are many factors that actually undermines the integrity of an electoral process. And for the purpose of this discussion, I will just zero in on 3 main factors that we think definitely distorts the integrity of the electoral process, and they will definitely help us to understand what electoral corruption is. And number 1 is the issue of vote buying, and number 2, abuse of state resources, and number 3 is the aspect of rigging elections. So let me start with the aspect of vote buying. So vote buying, of course, happens in many ways, and this is a process where political parties or individuals would want to give or promise to give whatever they are giving to the would-be voters. And basically this is just an inducement to ensure that the voters can then provide favors, and mostly the outcome is to ensure that they can vote in their favor. So you are using whatever means. It could be money, bribery, it could be distribution of mealie meal, it could be distribution of foodstuffs, and many other related aspects, even just promising or access to public resources for that particular demographic. So it becomes an aspect of vote buying because it crosses the principles on which an election or a campaign is supposed to be undertaken. So basically at the end of it, we are going to see promises and then favors are being done to ensure that one or a given political party can actually gain a political mileage in that particular campaign. When it comes to the issues of abuse of state resources, this is where political parties or individuals use any publicly owned resource for them to be able to finance their political campaign or even to conduct any other related political activities during campaigns and even after campaigns. So, for example, we have seen government vehicles, by some DCs and so forth and so on, being used for campaign. We have seen government infrastructure being used for campaign, and usually this happens more to the ruling party at that particular point in time. So that becomes an aspect of abuse of state resources, because state resources or publicly owned resources or infrastructure are not supposed to be used for any campaign. And that's why usually when there is a campaign like what is happening in Chawama, it is very, very much important and cardinal that the political structures are the ones that are campaigning and not people that belong to the ruling party that have got positions in government to go and campaign, because it will be very difficult for us to be able to draw a line between what the Minister of Infrastructure, for example, would be doing in Chawama during the campaign period. The third aspect is the rigging of elections itself. So, rigging of elections happens when there is, when you have tampered with, for example, the votes itself, in terms of manipulating the votes, for example, maybe adding, subtracting, misinforming the voters themselves, and many other aspects relating to ensure that we can tamper with the actual results of that particular election. Now, when you look at all these three examples that I have given, you will discover that they are actually far, far away from what is required for an integral, an electoral process that will actually be deemed as credible, with a lot of integrity, transparency, and accountability in it. Apart from that, when you evaluate these social evils that I've talked about, you also link them to the Electoral Process Act number 35 of 2016. In Part 7, it actually outlines all the electoral corrupt offenses and practices that are not supposed to be entertained in any given campaign, let it be a by-election or even a general election. So for us as Transparency International Zambia, we look at electoral corruption to link it to the three main aspects that I have talked about, that involves the aspect of vote buying, involves the aspect of abuse of state resources, and the actual rigging of elections. When these three aspects, main aspects, happen, we will definitely find ourselves in an aspect where we are now entertaining electoral corruption that is actually disastrous and also dangerous to our democratic dispensation in our country.
So, managers,
yes,
in practical terms,
yeah,
what damage does electoral corruption inflict on democracy, especially in a highly competitive by-election like Chawama?
Yeah, so there are so many aspects that comes as a result of electoral corruption.
Mm-hmm.
one of the main aspects is that electoral corruption actually damages or distorts the core principles of democracy. And one of them, of course, being the rule of law. You find that it erodes trust by the would-be electorates themselves, because, I mean, you see that the other party, of course, for example, maybe it's distributing and buying or inducing voters and so forth and so on. So trust in the process is actually lost. People will now shy away from participating, for example, in that particular by-election. It also brings in an aspect of lack of accountability, especially when a given leader is elected through a contested process, which is marred with electoral corruption. What am I saying? So you find that if I am standing in Chawama and I'm inducing people through buying them, bribery, giving them food and so forth and so on, what that means is that we are just exchanging cards. There's no manifesto that I have gone with the people for them to like me. It's that I am buying them. So if I am buying them, it means that when I go to parliament, I have got, there's nothing that will compel me to be accountable to them, because I bought my way through the entire process to go to parliament. So it distorts the aspects of accountability. It makes people shy away from participating in the electoral process, and you might be aware that one way in which people actually exercise their democratic right is by ensuring that they put a leader of their preference, and this can only be done in an election. So there are so many other aspects that electoral corruption brings to the democratic dispensation, but mostly it actually damages the principles, the core principles of democracy.
But some political players are refusing that the giving of the mini meal is not vote buying. It is helping their foot soldiers to go on in the field and mobilize. Of course, this period entails political parties have got the right to go and mobilize and speak to their people. And let's not forget that these people are human, and they need to eat, and they're walking distances. And by the way, Chawama is vast, because I have actually been on the ground. I've seen what's happening, and I've walked a few kilometers from here and there. I've seen what's happening. And when people are given meal, some political players are saying, no, this is not to buy votes, but to give our foot soldiers, because they're working and they're hungry. So they're arguing that what they're doing is not inducing a vote, or is not buying a vote, but what they're doing is just simply working and rewarding those that are helping them to mobilize. What's your take on that?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So basically, we need to draw a line between, first of all, who is a foot soldier, and also the intent. Okay? So the first level that we can draw a line, whether this is vote buying or it's not vote buying, is the aspect of the intent. What is the intention of distributing that particular food? If you are going to give food to the foot soldiers, I think there's no need of announcing. There's no need of going around with a vehicle, a canter, and you drop mini meal everywhere and so forth and so on.
But how
this
do they,
particular,
how
let me just finish it. This particular food that you are giving to your foot soldiers, I mean, yes, it can be transported, if depending on how many camps are there, it can be transported directly to where the camp of that particular party is. We must be aware that anything that will look like, okay, or may induce or may woodwink the voters, to more or less like favor the other political parties, becomes an aspect of vote buying. So for us to ensure the credibility of the process, okay, just like the Electoral Process Act puts it clearly to say that if it is the food which is being given to the food soldiers, it is not food buying. It's not vote buying, because those are specifically working and campaigning for the party. But as long as there is a diversion from that food, or that food for the foot soldiers, and then the members or the would-be voters starts benefiting from it, then we cross the line, it becomes prohibited, and it becomes vote buying, because there is an inducement in that process. Secondly, maybe it's an aspect of timing. Okay, at what particular point in time should this should the food soldiers receive the food? Okay, shouldn't they go and collect it maybe from the secretariat, or should it be brought to their footsteps, to their doorsteps, and so forth and so on? So if it is being brought to their doorsteps, and maybe whoever is transporting that food happens to pass through a market, and maybe they stop there, and accidentally the marketeer starts, benefiting from that food, it will be very difficult for people to understand that it was an accident that people benefited from there. So the second aspect, I think it's an aspect of timing and so forth and so on. So for us, I think in line with the Electoral Process Act, the food which is made for the food soldiers, it's not vote buying. But if that food is now then diverted to start helping, or you convert it into aid for other people to benefit, then basically that becomes an inducement.
Looking ahead to the polling day, what minimum standard must be upheld by political parties, candidates, institutions to ensure the Chawama by-election is free, fair, and is credible?
Yeah, so there are a number of things that political parties, of course, need to adhere to. One of it, of course, being the issue of a non-violent environment, which definitely ensures that each individual, is free to participate, meaning that political parties, of course, would need to respect the ECZ's guidelines, for example, in terms of campaign timetable, so that they do not crash. Because usually what brings violence are aspects of crashing and so forth and so on. They also need to adhere to laws such as the Public Order Act that has been put in place, so that they can operate within the confines of the law. There must be also an aspect of course, professionalism, inclusivity, and just to ensure that the entire process is transparent and credible, so that at the end of it, the people of Chawama are given an opportunity, to ensure that they can put or choose a leader who they actually prefer to be there, and not to, to have a leader that will buy their own way to parliament, so that we can protect our democracy from that perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
So managers, what role should the Electoral Commission of Zambia, the Zambia Police, and other law enforcement agencies play in dealing with electoral malpractices? So far, are they doing enough in Chawama?
Yeah, so stakeholders like the ones we have mentioned, Zambia Police, Electoral Commission of Zambia, of course they have got a number of responsibilities that they need to play or undertake. For example, for the Electoral Commission of Zambia, of course, we expect them to, to uphold high levels of professionalism to start with, conduct trainings for the post staff, and just ensure that all the logistical related aspects are put in place, but also guide political parties in terms of what is required of them and how they are supposed to conduct themselves. Most importantly is to, effect the sanctions that appear in the Electoral Process Act if it is found that a political party is behaving in a manner that is not within the confines of the laws that promote electoral integrity. For Zambia Police, of course, we expect them to maintain law and order by ensuring that all the political parties are following what has been put in place, or they operate within the confines of the law, and just to ensure that law and order, peace is actually maintained. Usually what scares people is when there is violence in that particular campaign. People will shy away from participating in that particular elections. So a number of responsibilities and functions that these particular stakeholders are supposed to undertake. Of course, for Zambia police, they have to police with fairness to ensure that there is no selectiveness in terms, this is ruling, this is opposition, and so forth and so on. They are supposed to be fair in their execution of duty, because we are looking at them as law enforcement agencies that will definitely foster the credibility of the electoral process, especially for now, Chawama by-election.
So what's your comment, managers, to the media that actually want to blow things out of proportion and spread out propaganda? I heard you gave a statement to say when political parties are giving food to their foot soldiers, they don't need to start taking photos and standing in front of the media. But we see that in this political heated period, we see the media following these politicians everywhere they go, and almost at every state they're taking photos and taking videos. What is your comment to them? Because to some extent, they have a bigger say on the perception of what is really happening, because they inform us, the nation, through social media and different other platforms in the media itself.
Yeah, the media is a very powerful tool in any process. And let's say, for example, for the Chawama by-election, of course, like we have put it, we have seen a lot of stories, a lot of photos, and so forth and so on. And definitely we need the media in the electoral process, because you are one of the key stakeholders. But of course the caution is just to ensure that what is being published should be verified, so that when the public is consuming what the media has published, it must be something that is actually credible, so that it does not mislead and so forth and so on. Yes, we have got political, instead of you media institutions, pressing in or bringing in issues of propaganda and so forth and so on, it would be good that you provided us with accurate and reliable information. And then the political parties have got their own media outlets and so forth and so on. Those are the ones that they can actually use propaganda, because of course propaganda sometimes it's allowed when you are campaigning and so forth and so on. But for you media houses, that are not attached to political parties, you're just there for news and so forth and so on, it will be better that what you produce is verified and it's accurate, because it has got a perception when it is being consumed by the general public.
Okay, thank you so much, viewers out there. We're coming to you live on Topstar channel 110 and streaming live on our Facebook page, that is Ptv2 Zambia. Please get into our comment section, let us know what you're thinking, give your comments, or you can also text us or give us a call. Here's a text message from our comment section. Good morning, moderator. Good morning, my friend Chimuka from TIZ. I'm keenly following the program. This is Eston from Mongo is following the program. We thank you so much. We value association, and keep texting and keep contributing. Finally, managers, beyond Chawama, what bolder message should political parties take from this by-election about ethics, accountability, and respect for Zambian democratic values?
Yeah, thanks so much for that question. Of course, we are headed towards the general election. And as Transparency International Zambia, I think we have always stated our expectations. And usually our expectations are around ensuring that all the stakeholders that are involved, operate and foster transparency, accountability, and integrity in the electoral process. It could be through campaign financing. This implies that political parties have to be very transparent in that particular process. Issues of violence, of course, we need to ensure that our electoral process or our campaigns are free from violence. Issues of inclusivity, issues of electoral corruption should actually be a talk of the past. People or political parties should be going on the ground and ensure that they can sell themselves through a manifesto. What we want is not to allow the aspect of big money to flow into politics, whereby people now start thinking, the individuals that want to contest start thinking that for somebody to win, they only need to have huge sums of money. That will be very, very dangerous to our democracy, because we will end up having, for example, a parliament that is full of people that want to, benefit in terms of personal interest. And this is where you find that now our democratic dispensation is distorted. Service delivery is affected because the monies that are supposed to go to service delivery are being siphoned by the people that won elections, because they invested a lot and they would want a repay out of it. So for us, transparency, accountability, integrity is key to ensure that we deliver a credible election.
Okay, thank you so much, managers. That was Transparency International Zambia Governance and Institutional Strengthening Manager, Mr. Chimuka. And we were talking critically about the Chawama by-election. We thank you so much for association, manager.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the invitation.
Thank you so much. To the viewers out there, we're coming to you live on Top Star Channel 110 and streaming live on our Facebook